Welcome to VLearn, Virtual Learning Network. This is session number 1 of India Earliest Times to the 8th Century AD, and the chapter is Physical Features. Topics to be covered are Introduction, Physical Geography and History, Basic Physiographical Divisions, Regional Physical Features. Introduction. History without geography is largely incomplete and devoid of its vital substance, for it loses focus in the absence of the concept of space. That is why history is regarded both as a history of mankind and a history of environment. The history of humans and the history of environment mutually influence one another. Soil, rainfall, vegetation, climate, and environment exercise considerable influence on the evolution of human cultures. In fact, the essence of human progress is the increasing emancipation of human beings from the clutches of nature or control of the vagaries of nature. So basically, the soil, rainfall, vegetation, climate, as well as the environment, they exercise considerable influence on the evolution of human cultures, on the evolution of human beings, and the way human beings have progressed is basically the increasing emancipation of human beings from the vagaries, from the forces, and from the brutalities of nature. So basically, from the clutches of nature, human beings have been emancipated, and there's a greater progress which has been taking place. The soil, the rainfall, these are all the elements of the particular culture or a place. Physical geography and history. Variations of soil, topography, rainfall, and climate have created a number of distinctly different regions with their separate characteristics and identities. Physical regions often correspond to culture zones or regions, that is, they tend to differ from one another at the level of language, food, dress, crop pattern, population, density, caste structure, etc. So, the physical regions and they often correspond to the culture zones or the regions, and the regions differ from each other with the regards with the levels of language, the food eating habits, the dress, the crop pattern, the harvesting, the population, density, caste system, economic, social, and political system over there, etc. For example, in some areas like Uttar Pradesh and northern Bihar, the fertile plains of the Ganga Valley, population concentration is very high, while the mountainous tribal central India is sparsely populated. Similarly, certain areas like Magad, Kosal, Avanti, Maharashtra, they are again very less, and some are very less, and some are densely populated. Environment and human settlements. The relationship between physical geography, human settlements, and settlement pattern is yet another important theme which deserves attention. For example, the Sindh region today is relatively warm and dry because rainfall in the region is very low. However, we know that the Harappan civilization flourished over large parts of the same region in the past. Some scholars opine that the region in the past had wetter climate with possibly higher rainfall, and this enabled the civilization to give itself a high standard of living. So basically, some scholars have opined that in the past the wetter climate was there and heavy rainfall was there, which enabled the civilization as well as the human beings to give themselves a better standard of living because of the higher rainfall. And also in Sindh region, today is relatively warm and dry because rainfall in the region is very low. In the Sindh region, the rainfall is very low. That is why the climate is warm and dry. Arguing against geographical determinism. At this point, it's important to remember that it's one thing to see or appreciate the interrelationship between physical features and the unfolding of historical processes in a region, but it is an entirely different matter to perceive history in terms of geographical determinism. So, it is different matter when we perceive history in terms of geography, and history without geography is also incomplete. Recognition of geographical factors helps in a better understanding of cultural developments. When we recognize geographical factors, the climate, the vegetation, the habitat over there, we are better able to understand how the culture of that area develops or how is it progressing. This also largely explains the different patterns of growth and development in divergent regions. It has been argued that nature determines the route of development while man determines the rate and the state. So, nature determines the route of development, how the development is taking place, and man determines the rate, the pace, the speed at which it takes place. Basic physiographical divisions. The basic physiographic divisions are three: Himalayan uplands, Indo-Gangetic plains, and peninsular India. Each one of these can be further subdivided. The Himalayas are considered to be still rising. Large quantities of alluvium are continuously carried down into the plains from these mountains owing to weathering and erosion. Fed by the Himalayan snows, the three great river systems Indus, Ganga, and Brahmaputra tend to flow perennially. Regional physical features. The Himalaya and the Western frontier. The Himalayas can be divided into three broad units: Eastern, Western, and Central. The eastern mountains run to the east of the Brahmaputra in the north-south, extending from Assam to South China. The central Himalayan region, extending from Bhutan to Chitral, lies at the fringe of the Great Tableland of Tibet. There have been trade and other contacts between India and Tibet across the frontier. So there have been commercial trade, there have been trade which is happening between India and Tibet, and also there are other contacts which are built between India and Tibet across this frontier. And also there is the way people are also interacting with each other in some manner or the other. The Indus Plains. The passes lead to the rich plains of the Indus, which can be divided into two regions, Punjab and Sindh. Punjab literally means the land of five rivers. These five tributaries of the Indus, flowing across a vast alluvial plain, have made the region the breadbasket of the subcontinent. So, Punjab means the land of five rivers, as the name suggests, and these five tributaries of the Indus flowing across a vast alluvial plain, they have made these tributaries of the Indus, they have made the region, the Punjab region, the breadbasket of the subcontinent. The lower Indus Valley and the delta constitute Sindh. Geographically, between the Baluchistan hills on the northwest and the Thar Desert on the southcast. So, the Indus Valley and the delta that constitute the Sindh part. Gangetic northern India. The Ganga basin climatically is more humid than the Indus region, and the annual rainfall starting with 50 centimeters in the Indo-Gangetic divide steadily rises to 200 centimeters by the time it reaches Bengal. The Ganga plains can be divided into three subcategories: upper, middle, and lower. The upper plains in western and central Uttar Pradesh largely include the Doab. This has been an area of conflict and cultural synthesis. So the upper plains in western and central UP, this had been an area of conflict and cultural synthesis. Eastern, Western, and Central India. Central India is an entirely different region and does not have a central focal point. It's a hilly region where the hills do not rise to any great height but are broken by steep slopes and intersected by valleys. The hills normally run in an east-west orientation. However, the Aravallis in the northwestern part of this physiographic division extend from southwest to the northeast. The Aravallis almost bisect Rajasthan and the desert state. So, the Aravallis bisect Rajasthan, which is known as the desert state. The southern eastern part of the state to the east of the Aravallis is part of a subregion called Malwa. Peninsular India. The Deccan Plateau and the surrounding coastal plains define the contours of peninsular India. The coastal plains in the east and extreme south are broad, while those in the west are narrow. The extreme south. The Deccan Plateau fragments into isolated blocks like the Nilgiri and the Cardamom Hills in the extreme south. They roughly divide the western and eastern coastal plains. The wide eastern coastal plain in the south and its adjoining hinterland constitute Tamil Nadu. So the wide eastern coastal plain in the south and its areas which are nearby, the adjoining hinterland also, that also constitute Tamil Nadu. So these are some of the questions that was all about the geographical, topography, climate, of certain areas of Punjab and Sindh were covered, and their geography and the way their climate, their habitat, their vegetation, their topographical features, their environment, that was discussed. And these are some of the questions. You have to do it yourself. Question number 1. Discuss the physical features responsible for the rise of Magad. Answer in about 10 lines. Fill in the blanks. Question number 2. Himalayas can be divided into 5 or 3 dash broad dash regions or units. Second, run of Kutch turns into a dash sea or swamp during the dash monsoon or autumn season. Third, the unirrigated lands in the extreme south produce dash wheat, barley or millets and dash oilseeds or rice. Last, Telangana has become a land of dash rivers or tanks and forms of artificial dash cultivation or irrigation. So that was all about it. Thank you. Happy learning. We learning.